guys. Tonight we saw Avengers Infinity War, part 1 of 2. Connor, what is the plot of Avengers Infinity War?
Avengers Infinity War takes place after Black Panther, Thor Ragnarok, and Captain America Civil War. The events take place pretty much directly after Thor Ragnarok. However, Thor and Loki are on the spaceship they escaped in. Thanos tries to come onto the ship to steal the Tesseract from Loki, kills Loki. Oh yeah, spoiler alert. Kills Loki. And then Thor meets up with the Guardians of the Galaxy. The Guardians of the Galaxy split up. One group, which is Thor, Groot, and Rocket, go to create a new hammer for Thor. Meanwhile, Star-Lord, Gamora, Drax, Mantis go off to fight Thanos for some reason. They fight Thanos, but Gamora is captured. Gamora is killed by Thanos. Meanwhile, Iron Man meets up with Dr. Strange and Spider-Man. They end up boarding one of Thanos' ships and doing some shit before they meet up with the remaining Guardians of the Galaxy, other than Gamora, who's killed, and not Thor and them. And they fight Thanos, but Star-Lord gets butthurt that Gamora was killed. Meanwhile, Scarlet Witch and the Vision are making inner human robot love, whatever that fucking is, technology philia or whatever, makes her kind of sound like a pedophile, whatever. And that's when Captain America comes out of nowhere because Vision's got the stone and they're trying to steal the stone. The Black Order, which are retarded, but we'll get into that. So they fight a bunch, and then for some reason Captain America knows where Wakanda is, even though he's not in the government anymore. Knows that it's highly advanced, and knows that Black Panther has a sister who happens to be the best technological ace ever, who's so good at technology that she can separate a mystic stone from a sentient AI who needs the mystic stone to survive without killing said sentient AI, which is when Thanos knows where everybody is, someone somehow knows, and Thanos' army ends up in Wakanda, and they fight. Then the Avengers assemble there. Rocket, Groot, and Thor now have Stormbreaker, which is Beta Ray Bill's hammer, Thor-type hammer. They come down, they fight, and then Robert Downey Jr. and them end up there. Thanos' death is faked out a million times. Vision dies, Gamora dies, and then the Infinity Stones are assembled on Thanos' glove. Everybody dies except for the original Avengers, War Machine, Rocket Raccoon, and that's it. Samuel L. Jackson, meanwhile, calls Captain Marvel on a pager for some reason right as he dies, and then it basically says Captain Marvel is going to destroy Thanos in the next movie. So, Aidan, what did you think of Avengers Infinity War?
I think Avengers Infinity War is 3/4 of a movie. And essentially, it's a lot like The Desolation of Smog, where the movie has about 15 million endings. Like, they beat up Thanos, and then he's like, ha, I'm not really dead. And they beat up Thanos again, and he's like, ha,
you couldn't get my glove.
I'm not really dead. You couldn't get my glove off, and I'm not really dead. And 1,000 times they fake it out. Like, they insist that there's no way this could be done in one movie. And yet they clearly show you 15 different ways this movie could have ended in one movie. And in the end, this movie ends up feeling like a 3-hour-long trailer for a movie that comes out a year from now.
Literally, if this movie was 3 hours and 15 minutes long and had one more fight sequence, it could have just been Avengers 4.
Yep.
Could never needed to happen.
But it essentially, Desolation is a smog zone where the end of Desolation of Smog to like, look, the dragon. If you want to find out how he gets killed, watch the next movie. And they did that shit again. The movie is really fucking, I wouldn't say confusing, but it's constantly
overstuffed.
Every 5 minutes you're switching to another story, and there's like 15 stories going on at the same time, and all of them are fucking trash. The most interesting story far and away is Thor, because Thor is the only one who actually feels like he's doing something. Like he loses to Thanos and he's like, I'm gonna get better and beat Thanos this time. Iron Man sits around talking to Spider-Man and the Guardians of the Galaxy, and then they fight Thanos for like 30 seconds and then he leaves. What was the other one? Oh, Captain America literally does nothing except fight scenes in Wakanda.
Yeah. It's like fight scenes. He just shows up for a few fight scenes and that's the gist.
Like literally he appears out of nowhere in the story. Vision and Black Widow, or Vision and Scarlet Witch are cornered. And then Captain America and Black Widow literally just appear out of nowhere. And the fights in this movie, they're not good. Everything is like, Black Widow is the most overpowered character ever. No matter who she fights, she can just take them down by kicking them or shooting them.
Yeah, it's just a quick, highly choreographed fight sequence, which is her entire superpower, is that she has such highly choreographed fight sequences that she can never lose a fight.
And then it's like, so much of this movie feels absolutely pointless. The Wakanda stuff, it's the battle from Episode 1, Star Wars Episode 1.
The shield.
The Goongas battle. They have the shield, and there's all the enemies on the other side of the shield. And instead of throwing blue balls, they're using their glowing blue shield blankies to fight zombies. And it just goes on and on and on. The Vision and Scarlet Witch romance is fucking terrible. They're just like, I love you a lot, and he's like, I love you a lot too, and then he's like, okay, you gotta kill me, and she's like, nah.
Which
and
is also
like,
a plot that was used with Peter Quill and Gamora. Lots of reused plot points in this movie.
Yeah, and then like
50,000 faked out deaths.
Another fake out Loki death. Every death. The main problem I have with this movie is the ending, because for a minute there, my brain was tricked into believing that Marvel finally grew some balls.
Even when the Winter Soldier died, because when Winter Soldier died, they like dwelled on it for like 45 seconds, then everybody disappears into ash, and it's like, okay.
Like Gamora gets thrown off the cliff, and I'm like, Gamora might stay dead, you know? There's always this nagging thought in the back of my mind that the Time Stone just breaks any death and any tension. But then during the end scene, everybody just turns to dust. Spider-Man turns to dust. Black Panther turns to dust. All the Guardians of the Galaxy, and all three of those characters, well, the Guardians of the Galaxy are a group, but you know what I mean.
All three of those
have
major franchises.
Sequels in production. Not just announced, but literally in production. All three of these sequels.
Spider-Man's also got the Sony legality law where Sony's not going to give up their biggest franchise.
All these characters turn to dust, and the second they turn to dust, any tension that the second movie could have is gone, because you know they've announced all these movies. It's not even a secret. We know Black Panther 2 is coming out. So killing Black Panther, in the back of your mind, you're just like, okay, they're going to use the Time Stone to reverse all this shit. There's so much shit that's just not necessary in this movie. Like, the movie is 3 fucking hours long, and everybody dies, but nothing is interesting. They fight random Black Order people for most of it. They fight Thanos for like 30 seconds, and that fight's kind of cool actually, because they're kind of like trying to keep him from closing his hand, which is how he uses his fist. And it's like the most interesting part of the movie, and everything else is like boring. They're talking to Dr. Strange, and Dr. Strange is like, this is probably not a good idea, and Tony's like, I don't give a fuck. And it's so boring. This does not need to be a 2-part movie. This very, very easily could have been a 1-part movie. You can't even call it a 1-part movie. You call it a fucking movie. This feels like 3/4 of a movie, and they just cut out the final fight scene. They're gonna make the final fight scene drag on for 3.5 hours. Everybody is dead, so you know that nobody is really dead. Everybody's gonna come back. The fucking... I can't... There's like... it's just... So a lot of the movie looked good, and there was a couple jokes that made me laugh, but outside of the part where Thor's making his new hammer, a lot of the movie just feels like fucking inconsequential. Like, you could have just started the movie with Thanos getting the stones and then made one movie there instead of making 3/4 of a movie and making me wait a goddamn year to pay for another fucking movie ticket to see how Thanos dies. Thanos has already accomplished his goal. Literally, that's like the start of the third act.
Doing it.
Yes. And I don't even know how they can stretch out the last fourth of a movie for 3.5 hours without making it the most tedious, lengthy bullshit. And there's really just next to no positives about this movie. Some of the shit is just like terrible. Like, there's this huge subplot about Bruce Banner having erectile dysfunction where he can't get the fucking Hulk to come out. And it's like, he's just like, I can't get my boner up. This is so weird. Like, normally I don't even have this problem. I'm not even drunk, okay? And he's just like talking about how he has erectile dysfunction the whole fucking movie, and you're just like, get the fuck on with it. We do not give a shit about Bruce Banner not being able to turn into the Hulk. Just get the fuck on with it. There's so much fat that could have been trimmed from this movie. And so much of the movie just feels so unnecessary. And then you compound that with the fact that we know everything is going to get undone because Spider-Man's dead. Literally, Spider-Man's death just makes it have no fucking impact. And the Captain Marvel tease is probably the tackiest shit that the Marvel Universe has ever pulled.
At the end, because Sam Jackson's a major player in Captain Marvel, she'd be like, take this if you ever need me as a pager, and he'd be like, alright, and then...
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Fuck.
God damn it.
It's so tiring.
Fuck Captain Marvel.
This is like literally the culmination of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's like every bad point about the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been put into one.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, everything that I disliked about Avengers 2, like, every serious scene in this movie is undercut with dumbass jokes, and only a few of them land, which was like Avengers 2's whole problem, except none of them landed. Every action scene feels pointless because it's just like bleh. And they try to act like the action scenes in previous movies were like important. Like, Tony's like, you remember the Battle of New York City, the most horrifying thing ever. And then you remember back to Avengers 1 and like Hawkeye's like, he's got like the bow between his legs and he's got the hand on the wall and he's not looking.
He's like, I got PTSD from when Hulk grabbed Loki's leg and flung him around like a rag doll. And when Hawkeye did that no-look-see shot, and when Black Widow did a triple backflip onto a fucking hovercraft, jumped off and triple rolled onto a building.
Like, they try to pretend like the Avengers 1 was the most intense,
that's what they did in Iron Man
ever.
3, and then they pretty much forgot about that major plot point that they introduced, and then
they try to pretend that these movies are something they're not, and add like a layer of depth, I think.
And maybe if someone died, you would say, because they could probably have gotten away with saying the fucking second movie gave them PTSD with like Quicksilver dying, and it's a little more serious since like a whole shitload of people died in the Flying City or whatever. But the New York battle was just so comically fucking.
Oh yeah.
And I don't mean comically as in comic book. I mean it's comedy.
No, it's fucking tacky.
Hawkeye's not even looking. He's like, it's like, what is the practicality here?
Black,
like, what would have happened if Hawkeye did that
Black
shot
Panther,
and then missed and then looked over and the guy shot him like 40 times?
Black Widow's got like her gun between her ass cheeks and she's shooting zombies down with it or whatever. Like the first Avengers movie does not take itself seriously at all, and this movie pretends
like,
that
wasn't
everything
it scary
is so
when there were the
fucking
giant snakes flying
serious.
through the air and I was shooting them with my laser beams, taking them out of the sky like they were
Also,
absolutely nothing.
Thanos is the worst villain.
Yeah.
Like, I expected Thanos to just, like, every tease about Thanos, they're like, he's the most ruthless man ever. I expected him to run around fucking massacring people just because he liked massacring people. And this movie, he's a little fucking bitch. He's like, I'm so sad about, I used to live on this planet and overpopulation wrecked it, so I killed people to fight overpopulation. He, like, spends half the movie crying. He's like, I had to kill
And we got
more,
the motivation
like,
the first 40 times he said it.
And like,
just like we got that he wasn't really going to die the first 40 times. They
and then like out of nowhere, Red Skull appears too, and you're like, what the fuck is this tacky shit? Red Skull first appears as like a flying ghost, and you're like, oh, it's like
stupid.
It's like a mystical entity, and then it just turns into Red Skull for no reason. They never bring it up. They never address it. He's just like, Red Skull's just there, and like. You don't have to make Thanos a sympathetic villain. You spent half the movie following Thanos around while he cries and bitches and moans about how he can make things better, and it's just so
Thanos
dumb.
needed to be an evil fucking bad guy. That's all he needed to be, is go around like a goddamn Dylan and Eric from Columbine and just want to kill people for fawning shit. That's the thing. And then you could have cut out his whining and bitching, added a fight scene at the end, and literally the 30 minutes of Thanos looking at the camera and crying, oh my god. And every time Thanos looked at the camera, for some reason it would do a fade out, like a fucking episode fucking
so
4 style, like a heart would fade. Like, the worst one was the one where it fades from like Thanos' face, and he's like, and crying, and then it goes into Gamora's face in the exact same position, and she's
so
like,
bad.
and I laughed out fucking loud, because I'm like, this is honestly the worst fade, most obvious jump cut I have seen in any movie ever, and it was just
Also,
so fucking awkward.
You can tell that hiring so many actors took a toll on the budget, because there was parts that looked blatantly terrible.
Iron Man looked horrible.
There was some parts, Iron Man is like a whole other thing.
Dog shit.
Like, for no reason, Iron Man goes from having a suit to having fucking nano machines. Like, this is Metal Gear Solid 4. He's like, nano machines, and they like blow a hole in the ship, and he's like, nano machines, and literally everything he does is just nano machines. It's like, what the fuck is even going on in this movie? But it all feels so pointless in the end, because you know everyone's gonna get brought back to life like halfway through the next movie, and then they'll all team up to fight Thanos with the power of friendship.
Also, Iron Man's new suit is retardedly overpowered. I kind of just
It's
preferred when
gross.
Iron Man could fly around and shoot laser beams. Like, they're always like, my suit has new improvements in every movie up to this one, but let's be honest. What could it honestly do that was different? Maybe like one new laser beam power is shown, but really, no different, except the cosmetic was different to sell a different toy. Honestly, it's Iron Man, so I don't blame him, because Iron Man changes his suit fairly often in the comics. But this one was just completely bullshit. Like, it was so fucking retardedly overpowered. Also, like, it was kind of cool that he could just like press the suit in and it became a suit, sure, but he had like laser beams and like super rocket feet and shit, and it's like, okay.
The fights are really inconsistent, because like when everyone was fighting Thanos and they were like going back and forth on him, that was pretty cool. But then there was shit like Dr. Strange fighting Voldemort, where him and Voldemort just had like an anime battle where they just like shoot Dragon Ball Z laser beams at each other. And you're like, what the fuck is this? Why is this taking up 30 minutes of fucking screen time?
The balance, I mean, not that the fight's huge. I mean, yeah, in a superhero film, the fights matter. How the fuck could Black Widow take on 3 Black Order members at once? Yet Doctor Strange is getting bodied. Yet Scarlet Witch is getting bodied. How is Black Widow that fucking powerful? Just honestly tell me. Her entire powers in the comics is that she's a fucking spy. Like, she can snipe people really good, she can do spy shit really good, but if Scarlet Witch came up against Black Widow, it would be over like that. Like, fucking Scarlet Witch would body your ass.
Really?
And then it's like, so she can take on 3 Black Order people, but Iron Man, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch, the Vision and Scarlet Witch are probably the 2 most powerful heroes in this movie, other than Thor, arguably. But Scarlet Witch would still defeat Thor. So it's like...
It just, in the end, the movie, it feels so fucking inconsequential. Like, you could literally, when the next movie comes out, you can literally skip this one and have the same experience as if you saw both. It's just a fucking very, very long, drawn-out waste of time. Connor, what'd you think of Avengers Infinite Warfare?
The thing about Avengers Infinity War is I came in thinking, you know, probably not going to be the greatest movie. My entire hype relied on the fact that, there will probably be a couple cool fight scenes or something. That was the entirety of my hope, and even that was thrown out the window. The movie was long and boring. 90% of the plots I either did not care about. I did not want to watch the Gamora and Thanos stuff because Thanos was too fucking nice, and most of it just dissolved to Gamora being like, I know something that my father does not know.
Why did
my
Thanos
father
adopt?
is an asshole. Yeah, Thanos randomly adopts Gamora. Thanos
Like he just
cries
has a thing
the
for
entire
kids?
time. Thanos is a good guy for some reason,
'Cause he also has
but
that
he's
scene
also
where
a
he,
bad guy.
He also has that scene where he like starts crying and he's like, because I killed all those people, those kids can have happy lives. And he's like, has tears streaming down his face. It's like, what the fuck?
Because he's a good guy, sort of, but also a bad guy. He's like a ruthless killer, but also to see his goal to the end. I don't know. Whatever. Thanos was fucking retarded because in the first Avengers, okay, for example, let's completely not count the comics for a second here. The first Avengers, they teased Thanos 6 years ago now. Thanos' chair turns around. He's like smiling. He's like, oh. And he looks all fucking evil. And you're like, this guy's fucking evil. And every time they hinted at him, he's the biggest fucking bad guy. He wants to wipe out Earth with the alien armies and shit all the time. And then it turns out to prevent Earth's overpopulation. Why does Thanos have to be a good guy exactly? Like, why does he have to be a misunderstood villain or something? Like, misunderstood... I don't fucking know. Thanos was retarded. So I quit caring about Thanos. I thought Thanos was fucking boring. I thought Thanos was retarded. I thought he was unthreatening. I thought he was a disgusting looking CGI character. And his ass got beat down like 40 times. They faked out Thanos' death a few times in the movie. They got Thanos' glove. They faked out his death at the end. They faked out his death when Gamora stabbed him. Okay, I don't need to see the death fake outs multiple times. Not to mention... They faked out Iron Man's death. They faked out deaths all the time. They faked out Doctor Strange's death. They probably faked out Loki's death. They faked out the entire Avengers' death. Okay. And then you have other, kind of plot points getting reused. So that was all kind of retarded. You had the teams which were interestingly balanced. Thor, Rocket Raccoon, and Groot was an interesting choice. I get the different direction of... Peter Dinklage was in it and created Hammer. I guess I wouldn't really consider him a huge anything except a side character. But then Captain America's entire part with Vision and Scarlet Witch was really uninteresting. Captain America, because he was Captain America, magically knew everything about Wakanda. Even, I guess maybe he talked with Black Panther for a few minutes and somehow knew the exact location and visited Wakanda? I don't know. I guess. And then so that was all pretty fucking uninteresting until the war happened, which was nothing but an action scene. Iron Man's part was probably the most interesting with Iron Man, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange, honestly, was probably the most important and interesting character in this movie.
Far away.
When I think about it. I mean, everyone had their moments, but when I think about it, Doctor Strange was the main character of this movie and was honestly probably my favorite part of this movie, even though I just thought the Doctor Strange movie was So, good on the Russo brothers for getting me to kind of like Doctor Strange.
Yeah, that actually was kind of impressive.
But the Guardians, I liked the Guardians part, and I thought there were some funny parts. There were some jokes that were really drawn out. The specific one was where Drax thought he could turn invisible by standing there. Like, is Drax just... I guess Drax just turned mentally retarded in this movie. Like, that's a plot point.
Yeah.
And some of the jokes kind of felt, like, out of place. But the threat never... Like, a lot of times the threat... Like, a lot of it took place off of Earth, passing the first few minutes, so I never really felt that Earth was in any danger.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then the final fight sequence takes place in Wakanda, which is not a real Earth location, not a cool location, and we legitimately saw a Wakanda war scene 2 months ago in Black Panther.
Yep.
And now,
the same one.
exactly 60 days later, basically, we are now seeing the exact same location reused for a different, slightly bigger, more ambitious fight scene. Why? Like, there's a lot of places. I think it would have been cool if they, like, were hiding out in Paris, France. And they're, like, destroying the Eiffel Tower.
Dude,
Random
China.
fucking
You gotta
fucking-
get those China
China.
bucks. But China's also cool because it's got, like, million-feet skyscrapers because they just use slaves.
Captain
to buy
America's
everything.
like, let's go to the skyscraper, and he's on the ground and just uses his superhero jump. Also, one funny-ass thing, speaking of Captain America's superpowers, which Captain America always had some jank-ass superpower moments in, like, all his movies.
Yeah.
Like in Avengers, where he just, like, jumps, like, 150 feet in the platform room. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
when he's, like,
I do.
snooping around looking for the Tesseract. But there was the scene where the war starts, and for some reason, they're like, Captain America has to run, like, 3 times faster than everybody. And he gets in, like, a dead-ass sprint that's going, like, 45 miles per hour, and it just looks so fucking ridiculous. But let's talk about the acting. I'm going to cut away to that. Chris Evans as Captain America had absolutely no character in the entire movie. None of those people had characters. The Guardians, you know, they all did their thing. I don't think any of them were necessarily bad. Thor, Chris Hemsworth, good job. Benedict Cabbage Patch, good job as Dr. Strange. Tom Holland did his thing as Spider-Man. Not a whole ton to do, so nothing super impressive, but not bad. The only one that phoned the shit in, might as well have done the movie through goddamn FaceTime, was Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey
his
Jr. from
performance
start
was
to
really
finish
bad.
was uncharismatic, boring, stupid, probably the least entertaining character in the entire movie. When the previous Avengers movies, Robert Downey Jr. has been the best part of the movies. He previously had a very huge character through Tony Stark, super important character. Here, he didn't feel like Tony Stark. He wasn't funny. He wasn't the backbone of the comic relief. I mean, I get that he's going to be a little more serious in this movie, and you got like the Guardians to pick up the comic relief shit, but I get that. But Tony Stark just acted out of character because he had absolutely no character in this movie.
Yep.
So really, what the problem with this movie was is that it just ended up being incredibly boring. Also, the Iron Man suit looked fucking terrible. Just go back to doing it half normal, half CGI. Because the Iron Man 1 suit, legitimately it's funny, because as time went on,
The suit
in like
gets worse and
everyone, the
worse.
suit starts looking worse and worse. And this is where it hits critical mass, where the suit just looks god fucking awful, and it legitimately looks worse. Like, compare it side to side, okay, sniffles. But compare it to side by side with 2008's Iron Man, and it's honestly like, how in the fuck has the suit gotten so terrible looking? Captain America needs his shield back. I don't really get it because he
that
was
weird
still,
like retracting.
like I
shield
get
he
it
had.
was like he was being Nomad, even though they would never call him Nomad, just called him Captain America the whole time. But it's Nomad, wink wink, nudge nudge, basically. I don't know. I just thought it was all really fucking stupid. And at the end of the day, the problem with this movie is, if this was the first 2 acts and the start of the 3rd act of a normal movie, and then they had an ending, I probably would have thought of it a lot like I thought the first Avengers was, maybe a little more bloated than the original Avengers. But it's like, okay, kind of a fun time, but stupid at the same time. Make Thanos more evil, cut out Thanos crying and all that bullshit, Slim down all the Thanos stuff. Make Thanos maybe have a couple extra scenes where he's just being fucking evil. Make the movie 3 hours long if you need to add that extra half hour. And just add a fucking scene at the end where Thanos destroys the world and Thanos tries to escape or something. Half the heroes die, and the original fucking Avengers with War Machine, Rocket Raccoon, and a couple others say, like, you know what, not so fast. And Thanos is like, you've already lost. And then they get in a big ass fight scene, like a million bad guys come out, the Black Order, they're all doing backflips, and Hawkeye's not looking, shooting arrows. Giant Man's gonna come in and just be giant and crush people. And then they beat up Thanos and then get the gauntlet off his hand, and then Captain America's wearing the shit, or Tony Stark or something. They're like, you lose, then they close the thing. It's like, plays the dramatic Avengers theme song. It's like some like magic glowing beam flies everywhere, and everybody's just alive again, and Thanos is like, no, I can't lose. And then maybe he gets disintegrated into dust or something because he's too powerful and evil. That's what they should have done, and they should have just made it one movie. Because even, literally Kevin Feige lied through his teeth in interviews up to like a month ago, where he's like, two completely different movies, two unrelated movies, because they basically looked at the statistics and said after The Hobbit, people realized it's incredibly fucking Jewish to make your movies multi-part. People don't like it. But the problem is, now that we know there's another 3.5 hours, we know it's going to be the core Avengers plus a handful of other characters. They're going to basically say, what? We're going to track down Thanos and go to Titan or something, and then find Thanos and say, we're going to beat you up, Thanos, and then fight an army of villains. And then fight the Black Order and fight Thanos, and then say we win. And presumably Ant-Man's entire story is going to be like... We know the Ant-Man and the Wasp movie takes place during Infinity War, probably, right? Ant-Man defeats Ghost, and at the end credits or something, Janet disappears. Or not Janet, Hope, who's the Wasp, after her and Wasp become boyfriend and girlfriend. I don't remember if that happened the first Ant-Man because it was just a dumb fuck Iron Man clone. But, you know, she's going to disappear and Ant-Man's going to join the Avengers in the next movie. And I bet you Hawkeye is probably with Ant-Man because they were both in prison together. So they're going to join the Avengers and defeat Thanos with them. And then in the last 5 minutes, Captain Marvel's gonna fly out and be like, I'm a feminist, and then shoot like lasers out of her hands and win. So, yeah, I mean, this movie come next year when the next Avenger 4 comes out is going to be a 100% pointless movie. Arguably, Justice League tried to do a similar concept, but did it better. Because what Avengers 3 should have done is just had the Black Order come down, and maybe Thanos gets like the stones in the background. In the end, he's like, I got all the stones.
Yeah.
You lose.
Yep.
And then shit goes down if you're going to make it 2-part. But Justice League is not getting its second part. At least anytime soon, but it had at least the idea of, if we're going to make it 2-part, have the lesser villain come down and preview the threat type of deal. Except Avengers could have pulled it off because you got 2 parts, but they couldn't hold their boner in with Thanos. Like, what if Darkseid's like, you know, Darkseid's a really evil villain. What if he comes down, he's like, you know,
crying all the time.
He's like, Superman's like, you're evil, Darkseid. And he's like, but I'm not actually a bad person. And they're like, what? And he's like, I just want to kill everybody because overpopulation. It's just overpopulation. It just really hurts my feelings. And it's like, oh, like, bro, we're really sorry. And he's like, what if we just became friends, Superman? Oh, yeah. It's fucking gay. Everyone will be back alive anyways. Avengers 3 is about to be a movie that is completely irrelevant. It already is. Okay, Aidan, would you recommend this movie?
Before that, I do want to talk about one last thing. and its characters. Every character in this movie sucks except for...
I've already mentioned this.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to... I really liked Doctor Strange in this movie. I didn't like him in his own movie because I thought he was fucking boring. But in this movie, him literally sacrificing half of the universe because...
Dude, because you know what happened?
He saw the future and he's like, this is
saw the
the
future.
way
He knows the
this
one
is how
in a
it has to
million.
play out. And so he's like, I'm gonna let everyone die. That's pretty badass.
You know what?
They made
And
it
the
cool.
thing is,
they made him
they're
like the best character.
They're like, because Doctor
Everyone else is
Strange can't
fucking boring.
spoil that they all need to die for the Avengers to assemble. And Avengers 4 is all going to be about the team coming back together and learning the power of teamwork.
The power of friendship and shit.
Once again. And Captain America and Iron Man need to
reignite their
friends
homosexual
again.
love. Yeah, they made Doctor Strange really badass in this one. He was one of the two characters I liked.
I didn't
besides-
even realize that, but that's the twist, is that Doctor Strange had to have known the whole time.
Oh yeah.
And that's why
That's why they had him
that.
do the future vision, and that's why at the end,
Also,
right
Red
as he
Skull
died, he
was
said,
really gay. I was
"We're in
laughing
the
hard
end
about
game."
that one. I know you mentioned Red Skull briefly, but when Red Skull came out,
Yeah, Red
I
Skull
was
really
laughing
awkward.
really hard, and then when it was revealed that Red Skull was going to do absolutely nothing and be completely pointless, I started laughing really hard some more. And also Captain Marvel's going to be really gay, because Captain Marvel's out of nowhere and be way too important to the movie, probably way more important than a bunch of characters that actually should be important.
Yeah.
And even though there's no point in actually having her in this movie, not that she can't join the Avengers later, but Captain Marvel pushing her into the next movie to be way too important and be one of the main heroes,
Yeah.
probably save the day a bit, is really fucking shoehorned.
Everything Doctor Strange did was fucking badass, though. Like him just saying we're in the end game after everyone died. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is why I
Doctor
recommend
Strange
this movie.
was actually legitimately the best part of this movie,
He was so
which was
fucking
honestly
cool.
really
It's
surprising.
so weird.
I was trying to think of what I actually liked about this movie, and every
like-
time any part, like I kind of enjoyed the Guardians parts to an extent, but every time Doctor Strange was on, that's when I was actually really fucking with it.
Yeah.
And I fuck with Doctor Strange and Spider-Man teaming up because that's a rare team up, and Doctor Strange and Spider-Man are Steve Ditko creations way more than their Stan Lee creations, even though Stan Lee gets the credit. They're Steve Ditko creations, and they're actually very different characters, especially from the archetype Marvel created. I like Doctor
Besides
Strange.
Doctor
and
Strange, I liked Thor as well because he had like the determination. I think you might have been,
Thor was great.
you
too.
might have been refilling the pop when he said it, but he's like, there was a part
No.
where he's talking to Rocket Raccoon and he's like, no one defeats Thor, and then Rocket Raccoon's like, he already defeated you, and then he's like, no one defeats Thor twice, and you're like, I like Thor, and then he makes the hammer and he does all the cool
That's
shit.
when
he does all the
that
badass
happened
shit
when
in
he
the
was
movie.
talking about how his whole family died or whatever.
Yeah. Doctor Strange and Thor do all of the badass
Yeah,
shit in this
that's
movie.
nice.
Everyone else is a fucking pussy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Which
would
is
I
weird,
recommend this movie?
Because if you asked me when Doctor Strange first came out who the coolest characters in Infinity War would be, probably the last two people I would have picked were Thor and Doctor Strange.
Yeah, no.
I would have been like Hawkeye over them because Thor was majorly gay until Thor Ragnarok came
Yeah,
out.
pretty much. But anyway, would I recommend this movie? No, I would recommend that you read spoilers online so that you know what you need to know for Avengers 4, which is not much. And then I would recommend just seeing Avengers 4 in a year and saving yourself the 3 fucking hours of boredom. So Connor, would you recommend Call of Duty Infinity War?
Good meme. No, I wouldn't recommend this movie. Like I said, there's good parts, but even for a Marvel fan, I just can't recommend this movie because it's just disappointing. Like, Infinity War was even promised by Kevin Feige and shit to be an actual important movie where things happen. This has been the absolute least important movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Incredible Hulk included. This movie has literally had no purpose. It's going to be completely undone. The highlights of the movie, like I said, are Thor and Doctor Strange, which has some really cool moments. Maybe watch it for free if you have the opportunity, if you know what I'm saying. the opportunity arises itself to watch the movie for free, because the Doctor Strange parts and the Thor parts are enjoyable. Spider-Man's fun to see.
Guardians is a mixed bag, but mostly
was a
good.
mixed bag, but it was overall pretty good, even though their story was less interesting than Doctor Strange and Thor's. They still were good. But overall, the movie was just really boring, really pointless, and honestly, it just really was a huge misstep in the way that, you know, especially with 10 years culminating, and this being such a big deal. And this is the movie that we have. Infinity War, the movie was announced several years ago now. And since Thanos showed up in 2012's Avengers, this has essentially been the movie fans have not stopped talking about since Thanos was revealed. Even though technically you could be like, well, it's the two-part, but we were told Infinity War stood on its own, which it does not. It does not stand on its own.
Close.
It obviously does not stand on its own because Spider-Man, Black Panther, and the Guardians of the Galaxy are clearly not dead. No one might die. And I said it. I told so many people online, I'm like, no one's going to die. And people will be like, well, actually, everybody died. And it's like, well, actually, you're a fucking retard because no one died. Literally,
Yeah,
just...
we already know they're alive because all these movies are already in.
And here's what's going to happen. Even at the end of Avengers 4, they confirmed in this movie Iron Man's safe. He's like, Pepper,
Yep.
I really want to have a baby with you.
Yep.
So he's
gonna
going to have
retire.
a baby and be like, maybe it's time to quit being a superhero.
Time to settle down.
And he's like, if you ever need me, and Disney's willing to pay me enough money, you know where to call me. And then he goes back to the tower, and Rhodey's like, well, it looks like I have nothing better to do because they haven't called me for a Hotel Rwanda 2 yet. so then he gets the Iron Man suit or something. Yeah. So, no, I wouldn't recommend the movie.
Another classic Marvel 10 stud-ass production.
Gosh. Ant-Man and the Wasp, dude. I have hope, man. Because it
I actually
actually
do
looks
have
like
hope
an
for
original.
Ant-Man and the Wasp.
The fucking trailer looked good.
Yeah. No. That
Granted.
And it has Michael Douglas in it.
Michael Douglas. The first one was bad, but you can't make two Iron Man clones.
Yeah.
Or can they?
They did it with Iron Man.
Iron Man 2 clone? I'm Ant-Man Industries.